Thanks very much for being here. I'm Tom Fudge, and I'm a reporter for KPBS. And where can kids and families go to enjoy the great outdoors in this dense old community of City Heights? That's kind of what we're talking about today. The shortage of parks in City Heights is well known, and today we're going to focus on two aspects of open space where residents are trying to make a difference. One is the effort to establish a skate park in City Heights, and that's the first thing we're going to be talking about. And hopefully we have some of you have something to contribute to that conversation. And then the other one we're going to be talking about is the way to take the best advantage of a very crucial part of our geography in San Diego and in City Heights, and those are our canyon lands. First, a couple of things about City Heights Speaks. KPBS is working together with Voice of San Diego, Media Arts Center of San Diego, the Aja Project, and Mid-City Can on City Heights Speaks, and the project is funded by the California Endowment. Its mission is to document the challenges specific to City Heights, to inform city residents of what's happening in their neighborhood, and to reach beyond neighborhood borders to spark a dialogue with all San Diego communities. We have been looking at a few subjects: food justice, neighborhood safety, and today we're going to be talking about land use in City Heights. Thanks to Mid-City Can for helping us organize this event, and to the City Heights Wellness Center for having us today. Thanks also to the Media Arts Center San Diego and the Aja Project for putting together the multimedia exhibits that you are going to see. And let me repeat one other thing I said before. If you do not have a blue ticket, please raise your hand. We're going to do an opportunity of drawing for 4 Kindle Fires at the end of this discussion. 4 Kindle Fires, and your chances of winning one are actually pretty good. So just let us know if you need a ticket, and we'll get you one. Well, first of all, skate parks. Before I introduce our special guest, Nick Ferracone, who's sitting right there, I guess I did just, hang on, there's one other thing that I would like to bring to your attention before we talk about skate parks. And here's Suzanne Marmion, news director of KPBS, to tell you all about it.
Thanks. I wanted to get in and get early. So yeah, I'm the news director at KPBS, and I just want to tell you how excited I am that we've had this project going for 1.5 years now, Speak City Heights, where we get to take a deep dive into one neighborhood. We don't have a huge staff, but we were able to, thanks to some support, be able to focus on City Heights in particular. And it means a lot to me that we include the voices of the people of City Heights as much as possible, and that's why it's called Speak City Heights. We want everyone who lives in City Heights to be involved, to speak up, to talk about the issues that are important to you. A forum like this is great, but it's a pretty limited opportunity. So we have something here. I'm going to pass out these cards. It's called the Public Insight Network, and basically you can fill this out right now if you want. You put your name, however you want to be contacted, and we write on their expertise, because everybody has an expertise in something, maybe gardening or in this case skate parks or land use issues, anything that's sort of near and dear to your heart. We put this in a database, and then when issues come up that we're covering as a news organization, we're able to reach out to you and ask you your opinion about it. It's not for marketing, it's private just to 2 journalists who have access to it, and they really just want to hear your voices on certain issues. So I'm going to pass this out. You can fill it in right here today and hand it to me or to Tom or pretty much any of the organizers. It'll eventually get back to us. Or you can go online and do it anytime. So please, Speak City Heights.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne Marmion. One other thing I did want to mention, there's a gentleman in the back of the room. He's wearing a green shirt and a tie, and his name is Bob Filner, and he's running for mayor. So if you want to ask him any questions, or hopefully he'll have something to say about skate parks, we'll find out. But anyway, so Bob Filner is here, and before we have our discussion...
We also have the community outreach coordinator from the Carl DeMaio campaign. We got some people who've got real influence.
Okay. No Carl DeMaio so far, but you never know. The night is young, so we'll see. Anyway, let's take a look at this video.
City Heights faces many problems. One of those is not having enough safe spaces for the teens to convene. 10 years ago, community activists began to join forces to build a new skate park. 10 years later, the struggle continues.
I think that kids in City Heights, there are places for them to hang out, except I think that it's really frowned upon because kids can't really just hang out around storefronts or just hang out in the street. So I think it'd be great if they had a better place to stay after school.
I think some of the benefits would be for the teens and youth in this area to be more active, to come out more, and be part of the community.
I think it'd be great if they built a skate park just because kids tend to skate in parks and places where people don't really want them to.
Many local organizations have paid attention. They believe that if skate parks exist elsewhere, then they should exist here too.
If the park is well designed and it allows access for adults, for kids, for everyone to be there, there shouldn't be any drawback. So if all they want to do is skate, I think that a skate park would be a place where they could skate safely.
Okay, that was produced by Youth Media Lab. Let's give them a round of applause for that very interesting, very provocative look at skate parks in City Heights. And now let me introduce my guest, who's going to kind of lead the discussion about skate parks, Nick Ferracone. Nick has been involved in designing lots of skate parks in many California cities. He is from San Diego but lived in Northern California for a while. He has helped to design skate parks in Placerville, Red Bluff, Anderson, and Quincy, just to name a few. And he is a founding member of the Mid-City Skate Park Advocacy Group. And thanks very much for coming.
Thanks for having me, Tom. I'm happy to be here.
All right. And we're just going to chat with him a little bit. And anytime anyone wants to chime in, just raise your hand and we can go to you. This is going to be a pretty casual discussion. So, Nick, anyway, what are we talking about here? I mean, when we're talking about the possibility of creating a skate park in City Heights, what have you been talking about? Have you identified a place? I mean, what's going on?
Well, there's our approach overall, recreation programming, which basically I'm approaching this as a recreation professional, is typically benefits driven, where some population has said a need is not being met. And so a group of kids became active and said, we've identified a need. This is something that we need here in City Heights. And that was really the genesis of the Mid-City Skate Park Advocacy Group, was to meet a need. What we've been doing to date really are a number of the background things we can do, consensus building, and mainly some preliminary investigations as to what would the best site or sites be. Our hope really is that we can eventually realize a small network of facilities here in City Heights, and also long-term in other parts of San Diego, that would meet the needs of the kids. Park planning says that you want at least one small park within walking distance of most residences, and then one big one that people can go to for more bigger functions and events. So our first goal is to get that large one done and then eventually realize the rest of the network.
Now, why does City Heights need a skate park?
It's a great question. As you mentioned, City Heights has a great deficiency in realized recreation in open space of any kinds, whether it's developed or whether it's preserved or conserved, which there's a great need for as well, and I'm highly supportive of that effort. As it turns out, City Heights is among the youngest of any population in the city. The 2000 census, I believe, has over 50%, just over 50% below the age of 30. So as someone who likes the idea of skate parks being realized, I can't think of a better place. I don't know anyone 30 or under who doesn't think skate parks are cool. And what the kids are telling us is that we don't want shuffleboard. We don't want things that are kind of outdated and outmoded.
Yeah, shuffleboard is cool.
So it's not for their population. You might as well have them wear bell bottoms, plaid pants. So it's not them. What they're saying is, this is our mode of expression. This is what we care about. This is what we want to show to each other. This is how we can develop in who we want to be. And as a recreational professional, as a city, And as a supporter, as a citizen, this is what I'm hopefully helping to realize.
Well, now, is City Heights really deficient in terms of skate parks? I mean, if you went to other parts of town in San Diego, would you find them whereas here there are none?
Great question. I'm adjunct staff with the Tony Hawk Foundation, and what we're doing now, for example, in the City of New Orleans and in others, is helping to establish what really would be standard. So as cities figure out the way that they're going to build out, what are the facilities we need? We know for X amount of population, we need this much police service, this many hospitals, this many tennis courts. What's just now being developed is how many skate parks, how many square feet of skate parks do we need for this many teens? All right? In comparison to other cities and counties around San Diego, well, there's none here, and that's not enough. There's none here. That's not enough, particularly for a very urbanized, very young community. So in my view, it's not enough.
You know, we were talking on the phone a couple days ago about skate parks and skateboarders, and you said something kind of interesting, that skateboarders are people who are really using the built environment for entertainment. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, I'd love to. I'll go as long as you'll let me. As you said, I grew up here in San Diego, and I grew up as a skateboarder, and at that time maybe it was a little harder to be a skateboarder because we were more annoying and we weren't really as accepted yet in a lot of the world. We didn't have X Games and other things that sort of normalized or presented what we do. And some of my friends got marginalized, so much so that some of my guys didn't quite make it through. You know, like they ended up on tough roads. And kids who live here are waking up each day and saying, what am I going to do with each day? Kids in Kansas will go out and they'll adapt and learn to play in cornfields.
Wheat fields.
Wheat fields.
Kansas.
Sorry, Iowa. I used to say Iowa. Sorry.
Okay.
Kids in City Heights are kids in a built environment, and there's nothing wrong with that, but we need to find ways for them to meet their needs. And here's what I think is so impressive about these kids. Given the lack of resources, given the challenges they face, meaning there's really not enough to meet their needs right now, these kids are so good that they're saying, you know what, I'm going to solve the problem myself. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find a way to play in a parking lot. I'm going to find a curb and make that something I can exercise with. I'm going to find a way to get a skateboard, to play, to show it to my friends, to develop a sense of cool, develop a sense of adventure, develop a sense of self. And they're doing that on the sides of streets and in parking lots. Those kids are going the extra mile to be good. Those are the kids that we want to develop, and they're problem solvers, and I think they're the infrastructure, the intellectual infrastructure of City Heights tomorrow.
Any skateboarders here, by the way? Anyone out there?
One. Okay, just one.
Okay, well, I don't know if do we all agree that skate parks are cool? I mean, you know, if City Heights wanted to put a skate park like in your neighborhood or next door to you, would that be okay? Yes. That would be okay? Do you think that would be okay with most people, or are you getting some resistance from any neighborhood residents, you know, when it comes to locating a skate park?
Not yet. As you asked earlier,
because you don't have a
we don't have a location. We're doing preliminary investigations. We have some candidate sites that we're looking at. What are the constraints there? What would the cost be? Would there be problems, conflicts in terms of use? Would any neighbors not be appreciative? The good news is that skate parks are typically very, very low impact. For example, one of the biggest concerns would be noise, and a lot of noise studies have been done now saying that they fall well within, or well below actually, the amount of noise generated by normal parks and recreation facilities. So we can usually diffuse that. There are a lot of studies, but you know, we don't want to be anywhere that anyone doesn't want us. But in an urbanized setting, we're pretty good. My strongest suggestion and my greatest hope is that we can locate inside an existing park, because that saves a huge amount of money. Not only do we not have to acquire the land, there's potential for environmental and a whole lot of other things that go into it. If we can locate into an existing park, that's a huge cost savings, and that hugely chops our lead time to get the thing up and running.
Let's see, we got a question out there. Why don't we take this gentleman?
Yes, the question is, if it was in an existing park, about what would it cost? And in this area, about how many skateboarders would probably use it?
They're good questions. It really can vary from anywhere as low as below $20 a square foot to over $50 a square foot. But there's huge variables, again, dependent upon what's the sort of associated administrative cost and process, if environmental is required. If it's straightforward, then it can come way down. And where I was working in Northern California, those are places that did not have necessarily robust economies, but they had a lot of people who had trades. And so in some cases, we would work with a local Rotary, and we'd find guys out in the community who knew how to pour concrete. Now, not just anyone can pour the main parts of skate parks, the technical, tricky parts, but a lot of guys can do flat work. So the point is, there's a lot of ways to work around what the costs typically are, the fixed costs in the construction. So how many skateboarders would come? I don't know. As many as we can get, I hope. There's a pretty good sized population here just in City Heights, but one of the criteria we're using as we grade potential sites is proximity to transit. We want as equal access as we can get throughout this community and to others. And ideally, we'll invite kids here. Now, if we get to do an improved design work, I would like to architecturally reflect what is the essence and the meaning and the feeling in City Heights. It's a very international community. We can make different treatments that say, this is what it means to be here. Thanks for coming from PB. You've learned something about our town.
Yeah, you know, I was asking you, Nick, some questions about what sites are you looking at, and you said, well, I don't know if I want to go into that, as if this is something you want to kind of keep secret, at least for the time being. I mean, what's wrong with telling all these folks where you want to put a skate park?
There's nothing. So the two main ones that we've looked at have been, in terms of locating within existing parks, have been, there's not a lot to choose from in City Heights. Colina del Sol we looked at, and we also looked at Park de la Cruz.
Okay, so I guess you are going to tell us.
Well,
you just did.
The reason I was reluctant, and the reason I kind of thought twice about it, is because they're not necessarily sites for us yet. They're just places we've looked at. We're still in the information gathering phase. We don't have any land. We've gotten great cooperation from Parks and Rec, but really at this time we're still doing the coalition building and sort of the background information gathering.
Okay, I have a question back here.
Two questions. I didn't understand the names of the parks you just named.
Okay.
If you could repeat those. And how much land are we talking about? A quarter an acre? What are we talking about?
Good question. Colina del Sol we've looked at. We actually have walked around there, and we brought some of the kids from Mid-City Can. And actually we did a worksheet that, that I've used out in the field called the Site Suitability Analysis. And we showed the kids what are the different constraints, including that one I mentioned about transit. So we looked at Colina del Sol, and we looked at Park de la Cruz. And each has its own interesting set of challenges, constraints, and opportunities as well. There's strengths and weaknesses to each. I'm sorry, what was your other question?
How much land do you need?
Okay, that's a good question, and that's been one of the constraints. For me, a good-sized skate park starts at around 10,000 square feet. And that's really what would be called skatable area, and we also like to add some amount around the perimeter for circulation. And my view as well, and I think this is an issue in City Heights, and this is something that we've done everywhere in the East Bay and even in rural Northern California, is you also want to invite some sort of a viewing platform and add some landscaping so that moms, dads, brothers, cousins, and other people can sit down, watch their kids, and you bring other people into it. That makes it a community center. That makes it a healthy place where there's lots of eyes there and people sharing the space.
You were talking about how skateboarders use the built environment for skateboarding, and that's one of the beauties of skateboarding, but it's also the reason why you go into a lot of parks, and on these sort of cement benches you see these tags that they put on so people can't skate there. And I know that there have been some controversies, like in Balboa Park a few years ago, back in 2004, there was some damage that was done to Alcazar Garden fountains because of skateboarders, and of course skateboarders like that give people a bad name. I mean, is there a problem? Are those some of the problems with using the built environment, that a lot of people just don't want you to skateboard in places where it would be cool to do it?
Yes, and there does end up being sort of a renegade element to skateboarding, and we're not to restate the obvious, but we're the Mid-City Skate Park Advocacy group because we want to bring them in, and so they can be in a place that's safe for them and comfortable for everyone else. Yeah, and any kind of damage to the public space, the public setting is regrettable. Ideally, and what's happening, if any of you have ever watched or heard of Rob Dyrdek, he's had a couple shows on MTV and some other shows. Dyrdek's foundation up in LA is looking at ways to build what are called smaller skate plazas into the built environment so that as kids may traverse through, say, Terralta Park, not in any plans, I'm just using one as an example, but as kids go from A to B, there could just be a small element, a little embankment with some metal coping built in so that means that the way the kids use it with their skateboards wouldn't result in damage to what was constructed. So instead of having to build a bunch of parks, you build a few, and on the routes from one to another, you build little skatable elements. Okay, and that should also draw the kids away from shopping centers that private people have built to try to develop commerce in, to help to try to develop the neighborhood. They sure don't deserve any damage, you know. So we want to find all the ways we can to channel the kids into the best places.
Lady over here has a question.
Okay, I was curious. I mean, if you're going to build a skate park, why not just build like a building where they can come and do tutoring, they can do acting, talent shows, and everything that could coincide with the skateboard?
Well, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't, except probably money. Probably money. So what we're doing is the city and Parks and Rec all exist to meet a variety of recreation opportunities in whatever space we do have. People in my background talk about something called ROS, the Recreation Opportunity Spectrum. Each park has a different grouping of opportunities. Terralta, you can kind of relax in, and then that varies all the way to something like a running track, which is it's intensively developed. It took construction and it's a focused use. All right, so what we're talking about is kind of one particular opportunity of the whole spectrum. If we win enough financial support that we have more that we can do, I love the idea of tutoring and teaching as part of a facility.
Where is the money going to come from, by the way?
It's a great question.
It's a great question, and we don't know the answer to that at this point, it sounds like.
We have, well, the great thing is the Mid-City Skate Park Advocacy Group, I think, is a great team. I happen to be bilingual, and that's not to say that my Spanish is good because I forgot almost all of it when I moved up north. I speak city and I speak skateboarder. I've worked in city planning, and I've been a skateboarder. That's the kind of bilingual I am, and that's what we need. We also have an entrepreneur, Dennis Stein, who is the owner, one of the two owners of Sea Rocket Bistro in North
Dennis
Park.
Stein, yeah, I talked to him just.
Okay, and he's active and he's very, very sharp, and he puts a lot into this group. And also, the third major member, I would say, is Mark Tran of Mid-City Can, and so he's a community organizer. So we've got a community organizer with huge outreach. We've got an entrepreneur, and we've got someone who's bilingual, and we also have someone who does PR and graphics for us as well. So through the different ranges and phases of our connections, we have had discussions about where it can come from. I will say this, we don't anticipate much funding from the city right now. We're planning on doing it without city money. We think we'll get some eventually, but we're setting ourselves up to do it with as little city support financially. All the approvals will still be needed. Well, that's fine, we can navigate that, but we're doing it, we're intending to get ourselves through the process through, I wouldn't say private, but a variety of grants and donations, and we've got lines on both.
Mm-hmm. Was there a lady back here who had a question?
Would you ever consider, you said you wanted to do like this little ramp or something around different parts of City Heights, right? Just kind of keep the kids moving or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
But have you ever thought of like these schools have joint use bills and stuff to utilize some of that land there? So because there's a lot of kids that say don't go to the other neighborhoods, they stay in their general area. Yeah. Because of maybe their age and maybe their economics, and they can't really get around. Yeah. So would you consider developing some of the joint use fields? Yes.
I'll consider anything that would, that makes sense to everybody. And I think that speaks to our longer term vision. The first goal we think should be to get sort of a larger flagship facility, 10,000 square feet, maybe or larger. 9 would be okay, 12 would be great. Smaller might not be worth it, bigger, probably not realistic yet. But somewhere in there is a good sized one that's appropriate to the population here. After that, then we'd want to start to branch out and find the smaller ones and get them into within walking distance of most residential neighborhoods. And we would absolutely seek partners. Now, we'll have time to do some sort of outreach and kind of do sort of a master plan. We'll talk to the schools, we'll talk to Parks and Rec, and get a list of candidate locations. So that would absolutely be a consideration. Sure, anywhere we can.
Nick, the other Nick back here, do you use skate parks?
I used to when I was younger.
Okay, what did you like to use? What kinds of parts of them?
I like the flowy ones. I wasn't a great skateboarder, but I got around, But I really liked the flow, the skate parks, that allowed people different abilities to skate together. If you're not on one level, you can still skate in the same vicinity. So it's not, you're not. You want to interact with the other skaters, so a park that's really right. Yeah.
Okay. You know what he's talking about?
I do. Those are all great points, and those are things that I advocate for. And if you'll see those in the skate parks where I designed, is what I'll begin. We always had a beginner area, and they always had a third or maybe more for what would be called the advanced kids. And the idea eventually is to provide a facility where kids, as they grow up, can continue to develop, and I've seen it happen. I went back to the city of Red Bluff, is just north of Chico, California, a little bit to the east, in Tehama County, and I went back there 5-6 years after our park had been built. And still, I was happy with the design. I saw kids that were coming to help us, because what we do is we do outreach. Once we get a site, once we begin the process, we say, okay kids, here's the shape of the site, what would you like to see happen? Do you want it to feel like a street? Do you want it to feel like a pool? And inevitably you get some combination. They give you sort of a menu, and then you tie them together in ways that make sense. How can we bring the moms? How can we bring the families? How can we develop the kids in ways that are safe but also interesting and challenging for them over time? So we can do all that. That can be designed in.
Okay. Let's see, any other questions? Let's see, back here.
Yeah, I wanted to know if you had any thoughts about incorporating the dogs into this. I see a lot of kids walking the dogs, families and stuff. And I had a skate dog. Now, I think, with ticketing or whatever you'd like to control, the mess dogs make, kids, all the kids I know carry bags. So it would be good for kids to learn responsibility too.
True.
But there's the surf dogs are getting so more popular and going to other beaches. I thought maybe skate dogs would bring a lot of interest, and somebody could actually teach it also.
What's a skate dog?
Skate dog? A dog that skates on a skateboard.
A dog on a skateboard?
Yeah, you bet. They push their little foot and they get going and they love it.
I didn't know that dogs skateboard.
Yeah, there's a couple I think that are kind of YouTube infamy. I have 2 dogs that are my best friends, hands down. But no, I would say that has not entered into our thought so far. It's mainly just the kids have been But there's more and more dog parks too. So maybe we could if we ever had a spot next to a dog park, we could talk about what would go in between.
Or get in between little ramps. That would be the easiest for dogs. Kids would be skating them, and they want to go home and walk their dogs and stuff too, so they're going to be integrating into their spot anyway. So, it might be an interest for future dogs.
We'll see what the public wants. That'll determine what the kids tell us they want will have the biggest impact on what the shapes are of the park.
But you really want the City Heights skate park to be the City Heights skate park. You're not looking for a model out there in Oceanside or OB or
absolutely not. It's
want to be the first skate dog.
No, I don't. That could be.
I lived in OB when it was the first on beach, so
okay.
all of the United States.
No, in fact, one of the lessons learned really in the 90s was that a lot of people, some municipalities were buying sort of ramps that just sit on top of, say, old abandoned tennis courts, or they might have an old incorporation yard, and they'd kind of put the kids back there on these ramps that were even built well, but they're built out of wood and other things that deteriorate over time. And in the end, kids are left with things that didn't really work, and unfortunately they're left then with the impression that the city didn't actually care about them, they just wanted them to go away. And that's hugely damaging to the psychology of the kids. One of the best things about this process is the way it enriches the kids. It teaches the kids that if they're interested in what's going on in their city, if they get up, if they talk to people about it, if they pull up their pants and roll up their sleeves, then something can get done. and they can be a part of success and change here. It's the essence of America. It teaches them that they're empowered, whether it's through voting, activism, or what they do for a living. So it's really one of the best things I've ever seen, and it's great that there's parks in the ground, but I've seen kids transform, and it's awesome.
Yeah, City Heights is a little fact here. City Heights population is about 80,000 people. City guidelines say there should be 2.8 acres of parkland for every 1,000 people. So that means there should be 229 acres of usable parkland in City Heights. And I think there's something like 100 acres. So, I mean, it's...
How many acres in City Heights?
Pardon me?
How many acres in City Heights?
I think it's about 100, so it's less than...
I mean the whole footprint of City Heights.
I don't know. I don't know.
200 acres sounds like it would be bigger than City Heights.
No, it's not 600 acres. They're supposed to have, with a population of 80,000 people, you're supposed to have 229 acres of usable parkland. And we're not talking about open space, which we're going to talk about in just a minute, but usable parkland. And that's kind of the context that the skate park kind of comes into. Now we're gonna start talking about canyons in just a little bit, but before we're done with you, Nick, so you're looking for the money. What about the bureaucratic process? Is that something that you've got going? Do you have support from Councilman Todd Gloria? Does it look like you got your ducks lined up as far as that goes?
Yes, and I'm very happy that you asked that. I would have left without mentioning. We have signed pledges of support from Todd Gloria and Marty Emerald. So please, you should know that about them. You should know that about them. And they and their staffs have both participated with our some of our our investigations, let's say, and also been supportive of what it is we're trying to do. In terms of navigating the bureaucracy, I have a planning background. I started in skate park design and recreation planning, and I've gone into city planning, so I swim in that stuff. And it's not easy, and San Diego can be convoluted, but we can get through that stuff, and I'm confident. And what we'll do is we'll find, there's no plan yet because it's going to be dependent on the site, but we can do that. We can do that. And yeah, I'll leave it there. Go ahead.
Okay, well, and maybe Tony Hawk has a little extra money.
They do. Well, so that's what I was going to say. In terms of funding, we know we have lines on a few different grants already. And the way grants work is once you get one, then you can leverage the next, and you can leverage the next, and you can leverage the next. And we've been waiting until we get just a couple more ducks in a row. Because, in my view, again, my counsel to the group has been we need to get the site before we sort of make our PR attack. Because then it's more real. We can do renderings, people can start to envision it, and then it can get picked up by the city as something that they intend to support, approve, and so on. And we're very, very close to that. And once we get those things, we'll try outreach. Two of the parks that I did were Rotary projects. We're simply guys who said, look, we know that we can reach out in the community and help kids have their needs and interests be met. We haven't even looked at that yet. And we know there's Rotarians here. And we know that there's a lot of communities who don't care where the kids are. They care if their needs are met. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. I'm very, very confident. The question is how soon, where, and when.
Okay, well, anyway.
Tom, thank you
Nick
so
Ferracone,
much. Yeah,
thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us.
I can just add, too, our group is on Facebook. We're on Facebook at Mid-City Skate Park Advocacy Group. If you don't want to try to remember that, Mid-City Skate Park at Gmail. You can always reach Tom or anyone else at Mid-City. Anyone at Mid-City can. They can always find us. Let us know if you have questions, concerns, want to get involved, or anything else. Okay.
Okay. Well, thanks again.
Thank you very much. Thank you.